Do you envision your children's book getting published after you get back to Canada?
I want to do that ASAP. I mean, the children's book thing, I mean, I guess the shortcut is if I just, if I just pay money out of pocket for an artist. I was trying to talk in a more organic way, to artists who are vegan, like artists who would care about the project. On the one hand, I could just save up money and pay for it myself, or I could try to do a fundraiser or ask people to contribute on Kickstarter or something. But it would not be a lot of money. If it's a couple $100 per page, it's not a very long book. But if you just want to directly hire a professional to illustrate it. But no, I'd love to move ahead with that absolutely ASAP. The audience for it in Chinese is much larger than the audience for it in English, both because more people speak Chinese, but also because more parents want to raise their kids vegan or just with a sympathetic interest in animals. And what's really big in China is not veganism, it's meat avoiding behavior. What's really big here is not veganism, but valorizing avoiding meat, regarding people who refuse to eat meat as virtuous. Culturally, there's a big market for the message that's in that book. And I just mentioned, I've seen Chinese people react to that story because I wrote it in Chinese and presented it to 2 different Chinese teachers in some other contexts. And a lot of Chinese people find the Chinese version of the story very emotionally moving. Like it has a big impact on them. And I just mentioned this, it's interesting to me, most of the Chinese people, they get about halfway through the story before really realizing what it's going to do to them. And then it kind of sinks in, you know what I mean? They don't see it coming. Maybe it's more predictable in English. But obviously for me, that's very gratifying to see that. These are Chinese adults responding to it that way. So, there's a little bit of poetry in the way the Chinese is written. And sure, it'd be great to see that reaching an audience of Chinese kids too.
Do you think that earthworms ever want to see the sky? Sometimes. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they climb up on the grass. Sometimes they wiggle up to the top of a mud puddle. Do you think they want to see the sun, the moon, and the clouds as we do? I don't know. Do you think the birds, looking down, ever want to see the world underground, as earthworms do? They see the same sky every day. Perhaps, sometimes, they imagine there is another world below, where the earthworms fly, too. Sitting on the streetlights, looking down, they imagine the earthworms sitting on their own little lamp pole, looking up from a world turned upside down. When birds fly over the lake, do you think they want to see the world below the water, as fishes do? Do they imagine there's another sun and another moon down there, under the water, for all the fishes to see? In the sky, they see the sun, the moon, and the clouds, so they imagine the fish have their own world with their own sun, at the bottom of the lake, I suppose. When the fish come up to the surface, what would they expect to see? Some seaweed or an octopus floating by, another ocean, upside down, above them, in the sky. Yes, I suppose so. Earthworms want to see the sky. The birds want to see underground, and the fish want to see another ocean in the clouds. What about the pigs and the cows? What do you mean? I think cows want to see the sky, but they live their whole lives inside. Millions of cows live in factories and never see the sky. I think pigs want to see the sky, but millions of them, in the factories, live their whole lives inside, waiting to die. When they look up, they see only a metal roof, and when they look down, they see only a concrete floor. Perhaps they imagine that the world outside has only a metal sky, and the forests and fields are made of cement and steel. Even earthworms want to see the sky. And that is the title of the book. Even earthworms want to see the sky.
À-bas-le-ciel.
Do you think in some ways learning is a little bit of a lost art, especially in the newer generations?
God, has it really gotten worse though? It's so easy to slip into that mentality that things were better in the past. What did you have in mind though? I mean, did you have something specific in mind in terms of declining levels of?
Actually, that was my way of kind of asking you about. I remember you talked about how in the video that you had seen I think it was a news report or something like that someone commented on, that basically something had happened on the university campus, some kind of violence or something like that. And you had a thought about that, about the kinds of people who go to university right now, and whether or not they're interested in learning, like how at some other time this individual would not be at a university, not really interested on some level.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that comment specifically, but that's literally what I was thinking of when I asked that question.
No, I mean, I remember that comment. I remember it really well. And I mean, you know, I've seen all those extremes in both Canada and China. In China, the vast majority of people do not get to choose their major in university. So, I mean, you see all these examples, even in China, of people who don't want to learn, who aren't motivated, who didn't choose their major, who resent it, who are a qualified nurse but have no intention of ever working as a nurse. I met another young woman, and she was forced to major in Vietnamese as a language. She spoke English really well. She wanted to learn English, but the government assigned her to study Vietnamese. For someone else, it would be a wonderful opportunity. For her, she just fucking sleepwalked through it. She didn't want... So, I mean, you see all these bizarre ironies. But on the other hand, in China, I mean, the Chinese are famous for this culturally. You meet people who want an education so badly, who have so much positive motivation, who really want to learn, who really want to improve themselves. Like you see, this is memorable, this is from Taiwan, a security guard who was standing there all alone. He had the most boring job in the world, standing in front of an elevator door in an apartment building as a security guard. And he was very assiduously practicing Chinese calligraphy, alone and nobody's watching, while he was working as a security guard. You meet people who either care about history or, literature, what have you. So you see all those extremes here. But, to give a really brief answer, I mean, in Canada, because you've probably heard this from me in other videos, my experience with university is completely, uniformly negative. Completely negative. I have nothing positive to say about any university I was at in Canada. And it really is the tragedy of my adult life that I've been unable to get an education, unable to get ahead because the university is so bad in Canada. And, the department I was just in, the Asian Studies department, I completely assumed, okay, so I'm interested in Asian politics. I'm in a department that's full of people who study politics in Asia. It must be easy for me to meet people. I thought they'd come on my YouTube channel. I thought I'd meet other people interested in politics of Asia, and we'd, do a podcast or do a conversation on camera or something. I didn't meet a single person interested in politics of Asia out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students there. And I started to figure out why. The reality of 99% of the students around me was that they came to Canada and they wanted to major in chemistry or medicine, biomedical sciences, or something that would earn a lot of money, like economics. Some of them wanted to major in business. And then they weren't smart enough, they weren't hardworking enough, or their English wasn't good enough. So they had to drop out of that major, and somebody said to them, look, kid, you don't speak English well enough to get ahead in chemistry, but Chinese is your first language, so why don't you just major in Asian studies? That'll be easy for you because you're already fluent in Chinese. Or Japanese is your first language, etc., etc. So I was surrounded by people who did not want to learn. Now, there are a million other problems with that program. It's fucking terrible. That university is a disgrace. Beautiful campus, beautiful library. The actual buildings are beautiful. The climate is beautiful. The garden is beautiful. But as a university, it's garbage. But then within that, in some ways, I was in the absolute most depressing place to be, because I'd be in a classroom where not even one other student was actually interested in what the professor was talking about. So it's depressing as hell for the professors too. So like I'd have a class on the history of communism in China, like hard political history in China. This is history with a body count. We're talking about millions of people being killed. We're talking about like some of the details. I remember the professor almost broke down crying. He had tears in his eyes, giving this lecture where he was talking about cannibalism, people murdering each other and eating each other in the recent history of China, last couple decades, not ancient history, the 20th century in China, talking about revenge killings and, cannibalism. And he was getting a bit emotionally broken down. And I remember I sat there and I just turned around for a minute to look at the other students in the class. And the other students have their fucking laptops open and are like, doing surfing Facebook, Not even one other student in the class gave a fuck on any level. There was just absolutely zero interest in this, basically fascinating lecture from somebody who's a world expert in this topic. And at that moment, he was speaking with great passion and emotion. Like, I think you would find it interesting if you knew nothing about China. If you happened to be sitting there, any basically intelligent person would have found this particular lecture at least shocking, at least interesting. You know what I mean? But I had to realize these students do not want to be here. The reason why they're not going to learn is that they don't want to learn. So yeah, that is on a huge scale a crisis of our modern education system. And part of the tragedy of it is, of course, that these are also people who are spending thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, getting an education that is hollow and that they can't use and they won't use.